Can you hear me?
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm just going to turn this up where I can hear you better. And then
Sounds good.
how do I pronounce your name?
The first name is Ari,
Yeah.
and sorry, Ari, and the last name is Vice, like
Okay.
Vice President.
Ari.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And Vice.
Yep.
Just making sure I pronounce it right. How's your day going?
Pretty good. Yeah. How about you?
It's going good. Yeah. I was hoping that I don't know what it is on our street here at the studio. It's like I feel like every 3-4 weeks they want to like dig up the road, and it's like always right around my recording time. So I'm always like, oh, so this morning they were digging up the cement again, but I think they're on lunch break, so we're good, which is makes me happy.
Yeah, they're selling this house, so the photographers are just in here, and the realtor, and I was
Oh,
like, I'll need privacy by 12:45, or I won't sound natural. So they just left.
it's good. Okay, I'm gonna play just a little bit just for you, just to make sure that you can hear, okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. Yes.
And are we going to be seen, or
Yeah.
like any? The podcast is going to be, I mean, we'll see each other, but when the podcast airs, just audio, right?
It's both.
Oh, it's both. Okay.
Yeah. Is that
I didn't
okay?
know. Yeah, I just didn't know podcasts had anything but audio, capabilities.
Yeah.
So,
No, they also go on YouTube, so it's pretty cool.
cool. I've
Yeah.
listened, but I haven't watched.
It's nice to watch sometimes if you have time. I feel like it's a lot easier just to listen to because then you can kind of do other things.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions before we get started about anything? All right.
I don't think so. Well, I'll
Okay.
try to be funny.
You just have to be yourself, right? So if you're sarcastic, be sarcastic. If you swear, swear. This is a totally real and raw podcast. So just be yourself. I don't want you to be anybody else.
Sounds good.
All right. You ready to get started?
Yeah, is it going to be now?
Yeah, it's going to be now. You ready?
Oh, give me one moment, please.
Okay.
One just ready.
You're ready?
Yeah.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to Music Junkies. I'm your host, Annette Smith, and today's guest is singer-songwriter who was born in Moscow, moved to the U.S. at the age of 8, and has lived in the U.K. and New York City on many occasions. You now reside in San Francisco. I love San Francisco. It's a great, great town. City, I guess you would call it.
Yeah.
35 years writing, recording, performing, obviously your originals. I love how you describe it. It's like incredibly catchy, a bit twisted, and fairly brief. I like how you describe your music, right? Velvet Underground or The Police. And then leaving your fans always wanting more, which is such a great, great place to be, an inspiration, right? So please welcome Ari Vais to the show. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you.
Yeah, I remember when the Police toured the USA for the first time, they played like 15, 20-minute sets, and Sting, who was kind of a controversial, divisive figure, and he loved that. He made people a little uncomfortable, but he was handsome, and, he wasn't like out to please anyone. He just said, leave him hungry.
That's
Let him come
right.
to the next show. And
I
that's how I
love
feel
it.
about short songs.
Yeah, and I don't think a song needs to be like 19 minutes long, right? Let's
No, that's an album. A full-length album should be that long, I reckon.
So I know that you picked all your own songs for our podcast today, but what was your experience picking those songs for today's podcast?
I have so many. It was hard to choose, and I think I went over the amount you asked for. They were either my favorite, or I thought they'd be the most appropriate for your show, like the most kind of hard-hitting or funny or quirky, memorable, maybe.
Oh, good. I love it. I love it. So before we get started, what is your favorite thing about living in San Francisco now?
The beauty, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a very pretty city, but if you go north or south, Russian River Valley, the North Bay, Marin, and Mendocino, just like anything north, and it's really nearby. Muir Woods, the national park, is just half an hour from here. So between the prettiness of most of San Francisco and then the general Bay Area, maybe north especially, the East Bay is all right, and the South Bay is Silicon Valley, so it's all right. But it's all on the coast, you know. So like
Yeah,
Highway 1 is as pretty as the Amalfi Coast, maybe more. But if you go north of here, it's the pretty most beautiful nature I've ever seen, and I guess
I
that's my
agree.
favorite thing about it.
I love it. I love it for that as well. I've been there 5 times now, and I absolutely just love it. I love driving through there. I love walking through the city. There is so much to see. Like, I feel like I still have not seen everything that there is of San Francisco just because there is so much. One of my favorite trips there was just recently, and just driving down to Monterey. Like, it was just so unbelievable.
Yeah, it's if people are going to LA and they have the time to spare, which is a long time, to do Highway 1 the whole way and go on the coast the whole way, then it's like unforgettable. It's one of those things that people must do once in their life if they can.
I agree. So we're gonna get started on your first song. You ready?
Ready?
So the song is called My Many Obsessions. So tell me a little bit about that song. What's kind of the story behind that song?
Well, I try to do something different with every song, so I surprise myself and I don't repeat myself. And after 35 years, this one was going to just be a list of girls that I've been into, and I kind of realized quickly that's the only lyrics. There'd be 16 girls' names. They had to be two syllables and have the first syllable be the one that has the accent, like Anna instead of Anna. And then there weren't any words. The middle of it is just whoa, whoa. So really the only lyrics are these girls' names. And then I had to come up with another 16 girls' names that I've liked or been obsessed with, that are also two syllables, and then also the accents on the first syllable. And it's hard really to remember all those names live. So sometimes I'll repeat, but then my many obsessions repeats and repeats and repeats until I start just saying obsessions, obsessions, and then the music stops and I say obsessions 4 times. So it makes you feel obsessive. I was trying to make a song like a umlaut, or no, not an umlaut, but onomatopoeia. You know what, when it sounds like what it is. So the song's about obsessions, and it sounds obsessive, and it makes you feel kind of obsessive by the end of it.
So there's
The
no
way, yeah.
underlining message here. These weren't all the girls that you've slept with over the
That's
last.
what my dad asked me. He was like, he was disapproving. Did you sleep with all these women? I was like, I definitely haven't. Because being somebody having an infatuation, somebody being fixated by you is not hot. That's the what you don't do if you want to sleep with somebody, is be fixated by them. But some of them, yeah, there's like ex-girlfriends, but mostly just people that I just really became fixated on. And a lot of my songs are about people that I thought I loved, uh, or I was so enchanted by that I couldn't do anything but write a song, either to try to impress her or because I just couldn't help myself. That was
Yeah.
just so inspired. And this is sort of a cynical wink at that. Like, oh boy, if I look through my songs, there's kind of a pattern. And so this was a self-deprecating summary of my career.
Lots of
To
songs about girls then. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, and like ones I couldn't have, or the ones that got away, or just looking like from afar, wishing she didn't have a boyfriend. So yeah, when I'm in a relationship, I don't really write songs about that person because there's no angst.
Yeah.
I'd rather just watch Netflix with them and or make dinner.
Yeah, for sure. What was your very first instrument that you learned to play?
Trombone. When I left Moscow, and it was the USSR at the time, and we settled in Cambridge, Mass. And we were in LA and Rome. Anyway, the point is I didn't speak English for third, fourth, and fifth grade, so I missed a lot of basic information, basic like physics, just basic history. Anyway, a teacher came into the classroom and I was bored because I didn't know what the teacher was saying, what anybody was saying. So another adult came in and they went, "Fur, fur, 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 fur." And I went, "Oh yeah, I'll do that." and they went or and I went so that's how I signed up for trombone lesson. I just wanted to get out of the classroom because I didn't understand what the teacher was saying. And music, you don't have to speak a language. It is a language.
Did you pick
Um,
up fairly quickly?
no, I don't think trombone lasted that long. My parents are really supportive and either rented me one, but I quickly became a Beatle maniac and just wanted to play guitar. So they signed me up for classical lessons. And I still have that classical guitar and finger picking. And then eventually I had that teacher teach me a solo McCartney song that had just come out. And he taught it to me like not like strumming, but in the classical way. But after that, I was like, I understand melody. I understand songwriting. I want to do this.
Yeah.
And soon after that, I started writing songs. Never stopped.
What was your very first song you learned on the guitar that you were so excited to learn?
Blackbird, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of hard.
Yeah.
There's a lot of finger picking going on. If you do it just so, because it's not random finger picking, it's very, very tight, specific that Paul was doing there. And Paul is such a great bass player and guitar player and piano player, but self-taught. They can't read music, the Beatles. So yeah, that was it. You perfect it. I don't remember it anymore, but I just kept practicing that song, and it was really exciting to get it right.
Was that your first exposure coming, obviously, to North America and hearing the Beatles, or did you listen to the Beatles when you were in Russia?
In the Soviet Union, you didn't listen to anything except patriotic dirges in
Oh,
Russian. Like there was no access to Western anything. It was blocked. So I don't even remember music. I remembered like the nightly news theme song forever because I'm just a melody guy. Da 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 da. It's like very Soviet, kind of like sad, but also gravitas and pretty, but and morose or something like funereal. So no music. And then when I came to the States, we landed in West Hollywood, and I was in fourth grade. I was like 10 or 11, and I thought I liked Kiss. I'd never heard Kiss, but I liked the Gore because I was a little
yeah.
boy. And then we moved to Cambridge. Then I heard the Beatles, and then everything changed forever because I think they still can't be topped. And as a songwriter, you know you're lucky if you because their songs are very accessible, and that's what I aspire towards. Like when you hear one of my songs, it's not like, oh, I don't understand. This is like math rock or avant-garde. I just don't get it. It's very accessible, but like the Beatles songs, there if you try to figure out how to play them, it's a total mind fuck. There's no G C G D E D. You know that
Yeah.
they all have like a key change or just like a lack of a pattern, a lack of a structure. You don't know what the chorus is, what the bridge is, and because I don't think about structure. I
Yeah.
very, very specifically avoid structure because it's a trapping.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next song.
I've got two babies, no spouse, and a really small house. I've been living on St. Charles.
St. Charles.
St. Charles, yeah, immortalizing a street. Um, yep, that's a toughie, but I like the way it came out. The two guitar solos at once instead of just choosing one. The producer just slapped them both on there, and it had a really cool effect. I like when a song does something that no previous song has done, and I've never had two solos at once. Usually, I just let the producer do whatever he or she wants because I'm like an actor, but I'm not the director. Or, like I know my role is to come into the studio and sing well and play good guitar solos or play good rhythm guitar. But what it's going to sound like is the producer's job, and I try not to direct the director.
Did you, when you first came into America, like what was some of the things that you noticed right away that were very different than Russia?
Well, we were in Rome first, and that was a
Oh,
total
okay.
trip compared to Russia. Russia, the Soviet Union, as you can imagine, is just shades of gray and like no smiles. It's a dreadful place, and now even more than then because Putin was the head of the KGB, and he's not really hiding it. And then Rome was like the most sensory, sensual place, gelato and people yelling and just like color, bright colors. And then we got to West Hollywood. It was, palm trees seemed very Jurassic Park. It wasn't very lovely. I think West Hollywood's cool now because it's the capital of music. Well, at least Hollywood. So no, A&R people. Anyway, yeah, I'm in the entertainment industry, so I like LA. Gets a bad rap up here in San Francisco, but I really have a lot of time for LA. So, but there was like strip joints, just all things that you would never have in the Soviet Union. So, and it was like really hot. But then a year later, my dad got a fellowship at Harvard, and we moved to Cambridge, Mass, and that was much more European. And there, I was like, okay. So the things that were different, people were free to do what they wanted. Like in the Soviet Union, if you acted if you weren't like in step with all the other soldiers, but you walked backwards, a car would just come and take you,
Wow.
basically. And in Cambridge, Mass, it's a really bohemian place. It's like socialists playing chess in Harvard Square, and they were like hippies. I remember there was like a bunch of hippies at a statue at Cambridge Common, and my parents let me go. I was like 10 and go to them. I was like, I liked them. I didn't know why. I didn't know the Beatles druggy period. And there was a girl and some dudes, and they were like happy to have a kid. And the girl was like, and I didn't understand what she meant, but somehow I knew she was like, don't smoke those J-bones around this kid. And I had no idea from drugs, but I kind of knew she was saying like, be good. And they were really nice. They were just long haired. I was just always drawn, even as a small kid, to otherness.
Yeah.
And
What
yeah.
was when you were in high school, like what was your music that you were mostly listening to then? Was it mostly the Beatles?
The Beatles have become kind of like the baseline. I think I was into hair metal. Well, like during elementary school, it was the Beatles, but then I listened to the radio. I'd listen to adult AAA radio, adult alternative, pretty songs and yacht rock. And I think I still have those influences too, because I write a lot of my songs are really pretty, and I'm proud of it. But then in high school, I think I liked sort of Ozzy a lot, and Rat, and like they were writing melodic pop songs too. They didn't even sound that metal. I mean, I think metal, I think of like Danzig or speed metal or something, and I never got into that aggressive stuff. But Ozzy was melodic, and Rat were melodic. They were trying to have hits on the radio, and if you do that, you have to have a catchy song. But I kind of liked all this, spandex and the badass stuff. And
Yeah.
then I think at some point, oh, and then I got really into Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd, the kind of trifecta. There was somebody else, not Rush, maybe for a minute. I got pretty heavily into those bands. And then I discovered the Velvet Underground and REM. And then sort of that, I was like, be different, or don't give a fuck what anybody thinks about what you do. And then you're free. You can be free as an artist. You can be free as a person. A long time ago, I stopped caring what people thought. I know I'm not going to be a jerk to anybody, but how others perceive me, I could give a fuck, and I don't think about it. It's a waste of time.
It is a
So
waste.
musically as well. Yeah.
So how many pairs of spandex did you have?
I was a very dorky dresser. I didn't actually dress like those guys, but my mom and I went to see, I was like, before I could really speak English, I listened to the radio, and I knew caller 10. So I'd go, it was a rotary phone, and I would often be caller 10 and win the thing. So I won like a bike for myself and the Christmas, Thanksgiving turkey. I was just so obsessed I didn't have a sibling, and I didn't speak the language, and we were just sitting there in Cambridge. So I was often the winner, and I won Aerosmith tickets for the notorious New Year's Eve concert at the Orpheum Theater in Boston. And my mom took me because I was a little boy. And so we walk in there, we didn't know what they sounded like, or what, we'd never really heard live music or anything except the Beatles. In fact, when we bought our first Beatles record, Rubber Soul, at the Cambridge Coop, we didn't have a record player. So for a year, we just looked at pictures of them going, they're so cool, not knowing what they sounded like. So we go into the Orpheum Theater, and it's like, hell, like what religious people would imagine hell to be. It's just really, really raw, raunchy, the kind of crowd because they used to be really like smackheads, and it was just like a scene, man. It was an unholy scene, and I was, my mom was fresh off the boat, and I was a little boy, and the security people tried to offer us cotton, and like as brand new immigrants, we were just like, don't look at us. You're just mortified just by being there, so we refused the cotton. And of course the seats were amazing. They were like right in the front. And so we were like, well, let's hope it's going to be really pretty songs or whatever. We didn't know what to expect. The lights go down. It's the opening band. We didn't know that such a thing as an opening band. We didn't know anything, but it was like deafening once they started playing. And we were like, oh my God, like it was like now I like it when I see My Bloody Valentine and I can like feel hearing damage and I can feel my
Yeah.
ribs reverberating. I like it. It's visceral. It's powerful. But at the time, it was just terrifying. And the opening band was really scuzzy looking, and so were all the people in the crowd, heroin chic, but it was just heroin. There was no chic. And the drummer throws a drumstick and it lands in my mom's hair, and all these people pounce on her. She thought it was a grenade. And there's this pandemonium. They got the drumstick out of her hair and projectile, and then we just got the fuck out of there. And then the security guys were laughing at us. They don't belong here. They didn't take the cotton. And so we didn't see Aerosmith, and we didn't even see like half the first song because of the drumstick. Yeah. So
Awesome story. I love that.
thanks. Yeah, it's a good one.
That's a good one. I'm sure is recovered from that.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny. She's not been to shows where people throw drumsticks, and I, listening to indie rock and Weezer and stuff, they will do rock star stuff, but kind of ironically, or Pavement. They don't really throw drumsticks, but it's like getting a foul ball at a baseball game. It's a good thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing.
Happened to hit her in the head.
All right, next song.
Bay Area Robot Farm. It's a shock.
Okay, that's a good title of a song, Bay Area Robot Farm. Like, can't get anything better than that.
Yeah, I met a woman on a Zoom call. It was a business meeting, and just was smitten. And she told me she worked at a robot farm in the Bay Area, and I said, "That's a song title right there." And then when I followed up to see if she was interested and her company was going to buy whatever crap I was selling, she said, "No." I also wrote that the song is coming along nicely, and she didn't know that I was like a rock star. She probably just thought I was a guy with a desk, in a corporate world. So she wrote back, "I'd love to hear it in whatever state of readiness." So I only had Bay Area Robot Farm. It's a shot in the arm, but my producer lives a block and a half that way, and I go, "Chris," and I didn't even write the lyrics or the music. I kind of drawing sketches. Like I just had to quickly. I wanted to show her that in a couple of hours there's a hit song. There's no stay, And he was on board. He was like, writing songs for girls is a big meatball, but it only needs to work once.
That's
and
right.
So we were there developing it, like while we were tracking the Bay Area Robot Farms shot in the arm. I was writing the bridge, and then the middle part is just da 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 bum bum bum, and those three drumsticks were a bittersweet symphony by the Verve, but much faster. I mean, I think all of my songs will have a reference if you're really paying close attention to something else that I really like a direct reference. And so, yeah, then I emailed it to her a couple hours later, which is the fastest I've ever written a hit, from like almost from scratch to a full production. And of course, she was like, "Holy crap," and she played it for everybody at the robot farm, and she was just here visiting. So I went from like not meeting somebody in person to having a visitor for a week. And like inspiration is the best way to write a song, because a really good one could be written slowly, but when there's no deadline except your own breathlessness, and it writes itself, it's much less labor intensive. You just have to have a pen and an instrument in your hands.
So did you always have a guitar handy when you were with the ladies?
With the ladies, let's see. Not really. I played a lot of shows, but no, if I was already with the lady, that meant that she already knew about the guitar.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I've always lived in places where I've had pens strewn everywhere, because if you can't find a pen, then the idea is lost. So I just, everywhere I look, I want to make sure there's a pen. And yeah, I'm always near a piano. I'm about to go to London, and I asked my host to see if he can get me an acoustic, just because you don't want to lose an idea. And it says if you're a songwriter, you're not going to write anything unless if you have a guitar, then you'll write something right away. It's just kind of black and white as that. you've got to actually try. Like if you're a writer of short stories, you got to have a pen and paper, or sit down at the laptop, not just bellyache about how you get writer's block. You won't if you do it. Just do it.
I agree. I agree. My husband plays guitar and I play drums, and we've tried to sit down and write a song, and I'm so impressed with how much music you have wrote, because it's not an easy task. Like if you are not, I don't want to say you don't need to be born to be a writer, but it's like, I love to just play. I don't have that talent yet where I can I know every song. It's like, somebody can play like a little tidbit of like, a millisecond. I'll be like, oh, that's that song. I have that talent. I don't have the talent of like, hey, I need to write a song. I just don't have that talent. So I'm so impressed with all the music that you've wrote, and just to like meet somebody and get inspired to like write a song with them and be finished. Like we've been like trying here for 17 years and we still have like three words down. You know what I mean? We keep
Yeah. I wonder if it's a talent or if it's a craft, but either way, it takes work. Or it takes something. I don't know if melody can be taught, or if you have it or you don't have it. But I think if you like, I don't finish writing a song if it's not gonna wow me. But I think, oh yeah, this is what I was gonna say. I think if you're trying to write a song and you specifically want to be like the Kinks, like if you just imitate right down to a T without actually having that same song be the song, like Victoria or You Really Got Me, but something like it. I heard a comedian, Mike Birbiglia, say, or I'm studying stand-up comedy, say that like your first comedy performances should basically emulate your hero, whether it's Dave Chappelle or whoever it is. Just talk like that, use those inflections, and it helps you then find your own voice. And same with writing. Like I used to write fiction, and it was they were all Catcher in the Rye-esque, because I wrote that book. I read that book so many occasions. But after that, you develop your own voice slowly. So if you and your husband are trying to write a song, just pick your favorite artist and try to write a song that sounds like what they would do, and just rip off. Yeah, it's not really a rip off; it's an homage.
That's right. Where's been the favorite, your most, I guess there's lots of probably favorite places where you've played, but has there been an audience that's really stood out to you to this day?
When I toured England, and the guitar player at the time was Jody Porter from Fountains of Wayne, who also produced my record. He's a good friend and great guitar player. And then we had the drummer and a bass player already in the UK learn the songs. And I just feel like, and I also toured the Philippines solo electric. Overseas, yonder ways, they really go nuts for music. And my kind of music, like Kim Deal, the Breeders, the Pixies, Nirvana, Dinosaur Jr. would always break there first, or like be bigger on that side of the pond, be bigger in England. So those audiences wowed me because they come to listen. There's no shame in being like a person that is an artist, whether they're huge or not. Like there might be a little bit in places that are more finance oriented.
Yeah.
How are you monetizing this? Well, I'm a fucking poet. It's not an app, is a common refrain around here. But Bottom of the Hill in San Francisco is a club that I've always loved to play. It's in a funky area of San Francisco where you wouldn't normally go. It's just like a destination venue. So you'd have to go specifically to see a band you like there. Otherwise, it's just residences. There's a place in New Jersey called Maxwell's in Hoboken. And that was also like a smallish room, but they'd have national acts play. And Badly Drawn Boy, who I love, Damon Goff, happened to be there. And he saw my set, which was such an honor because he's a big influence on me. And he said it reminds him of Ween, which I use in my like junket of quotes. Let's see. Is a place called Mercury Lounge in Manhattan. And I toured Canada, and that was our first tour we ever did. It was Ontario because the record label was there at the time. And again, like once you leave the US of A, or you go somewhere in the US of A, like New Jersey, like somewhere that's not a metropolitan area, then people are really into it. They come to the rock concert they're excited, even if you're not famous. And that's just such a rush, rather than like a bunch of jaded hipsters in a big city that turn their back on you and play on their
Yeah,
phone.
smoking a cigarette and having a
Yeah, like
beer.
yeah, making a big show that they're not paying attention or whatever. So yeah, the crowds of I love playing where there's not that much else going on.
Yeah,
So but especially in the UK.
think so. VP of Snails.
Yeah, that one has gotten a lot of listens on the old Spotify and other streaming services. That song is we had an album come out 2 albums ago, one album ago, I can't remember, called Curmudgeon. And it was like Trump, it was 9/11, not 9/11, COVID. It was just a bad scene, man. And we knew it was going to be a dark album full of bile, but there's still a lot of catchy songs. Like that's a really catchy song, but it's I used to be in sales, and then like now I don't work at all, which is heavenly. But so the VP of Snails, there's just all these songs on the boredom in the boardroom, which is fun to say. And like the end is I'm the CEO that floated out to sea. I just had a lot of fun with the lyrics because just, corporations that go, here's money to this vendor to give money to the money with the money, bottom
Yeah.
line, quarterly quota, blah. And I just wanted to like express my disgust. But that song modulates, which to our listeners that might not be like musicians, that means changing key. And I didn't intentionally do it. I was like, oh, it's the same do 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 do, but now it can't be in the same key because it naturally has to be in this key. And I kept writing, and I was like, wow, the third time it happens, it's in a different key altogether. So every verse and every do 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 do, which is I get high when I see you walk by, da 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 da. So there you go. I was doing a Beatles reference directly there, but you wouldn't know it until I told you. 3 modulations in one song is pretty math rock. It's like progress. It's like something an engineer would do, but I only did it because that's where the song was headed, and I couldn't
Yeah.
repeat that melodic line in the original key for the song to keep moving where it was moving. I'm just like happy to be here. They kind of take on their own life pretty quickly.
Yeah. So you've been
Yeah.
like just being in the music industry for obviously 35 years. What are some things that you are grateful for the changes that you've seen? And what about I don't want to say negative, but what's something negative that's kind of been changed in the music world as well?
It's hard to say, because I'm an indie label kind of guy. And of course, everybody wants to make money from it and not have to work a regular job. So I would sell out in a second, but not if it meant writing, well, I don't hear the hit, although I can write the hits, but like I want complete creative freedom. Changes I've liked. I guess when I first started really, really doing it in the 90s, there was indie labels that were big, like Matador and Drag City and like Sub Pop, the Holy Grail. And there was gatekeepers, and you kind of had to know somebody who knew that guy. You couldn't just send him a demo tape, or you had to kind of become buzzy on your own, like the Strokes. By the time they got signed, of course, they were all kids of famous people. But besides that, they made a demo tape, and the demo was circulating around New York. It was like the best kept, the worst kept secret, because everybody got a hold of that demo, and it was amazing. So when they got a record deal and they made an actual album, including the songs in that demo, they already weren't as good as the demo. But so yeah, there's gatekeepers, and it's a drag back in the day when you just couldn't penetrate. Like I'm also an oil painter. You can't go into an art gallery and go, ugh. You have to have somebody do it for you. You have to make up a fake name. All this bullshit that's gone because then music stopped being for sale. And I remember like in high school, I didn't have any money, but I'd spend 16 bucks a pop every time a new REM record came out, or Squeeze, or whatever it was that I liked. The Cars. Oh my God, I love the Cars. That's just a ton of dough. And then one day a CD, nobody wants it. You couldn't sell it for 50 cents or 50 cent. People just don't want physical stuff. So when, and I know a lot of my artist friends that do make a living at it are pretty pissed about Spotify and all these things where you get like 2 pennies after years of streams, aren't happy about it. But it allowed for walls to fall that were unfair, and The music industry is worse than the film industry as far as scumbaggery. And so people that charge that much for a CD where the artist saw the smallest fraction, they're gone and they have to find a different job. And that happened, of course, a long time ago. So then when MySpace, there became web platforms where you could post your own song. And now like everyone you can do, not just Facebook and Spotify, but like just countless. But
Yeah.
you're not going to press CDs or buy, unless you're a vinyl head, you're not going to buy a physical thing. It allowed for kids to put their music out there and do creative self-expression, which created a lot more competition, which I really enjoy, because I think everybody should express themselves creatively. Some people never would think to do it, and some people just work too hard. They will begin a life and they'll have a job, 9 to 5, 9 to 6, family, kids. Like, when are they going to even make a doodle, much less write a novel or do something where they're expressing creatively? But to me, it's like breathing, and anybody can do it. Everybody should do it, and then it's good for your spiritual health and your mental health. But it wasn't like everybody started writing Roxanne by the Police. People just did what they did, and so you have to be found by making exceptional music, because everybody's putting out content, which is pretty cool. And then the record labels, like, this is a trip, Annette. Being signed to a label, what's the upside now? You know, like, what are they going to give you? Maybe they'll front you some money to make a record, then you're going to owe that money back. But
Yeah.
they don't really break artists. It's sort of prestigious to be on a label that has an artist that you like Yellow Tango. But you know, unless you're going to tour relentlessly, you can do that with or without a label. And the only way to make money in music is from selling merch while touring, not even the money from the show, because that goes to all the other people. Just
Yeah.
selling merch.
You're spending $800-900 on a ticket now. Like, it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, if you're famous, really famous, then yeah, like I spent an insane amount of money for Paul McCartney. But if you're touring and you're a small band trying to make it and trying to grow a fan base, it's just expensive to rent a car and hire childcare, you know, just to do all the stuff, get 3 other people that can drop everything and do it, and then do it again. Because the first
Yeah.
tour doesn't accomplish anything. It's when you come back and then you already have a fan base that you can grow. So that's a label doesn't pay for that. So I think it's pretty good that it's all DIY now. And, you know, you can put stuff across all streaming services yourself using like TuneCore or CD Baby. So you're not really reliant on people that may or may not choose to ignore you, or just have, you know, just have no way to be penetrated. Like, there's just no way you'll ever get your music in front of them, no matter how tenacious you are. And now you're kind of there. They're kind of important. Like, an album of mine is going to be covered in Cream. By the time this podcast airs, it'll have been covered in Cream, which is a magazine that's like Rolling Stone. It's like the Coke and Pepsi. Rolling Stone and Cream are the 2 big music magazines, and I'm stoked about that because that could change my life.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's a free for all, and I think that's mostly just really positive.
Yeah, I think that's positive too. You know, I love what I do with our, you know, with this podcast, and I think of how many musicians and artists that I have met over the last, you know, my 3rd season is coming up here in August, that I would have never met, like absolutely never met, like grateful for COVID just for that reason.
Yeah.
All these people that I've met and spoke to, I've never heard their music before, and I love music. And so I've loved that I've been able to just listen to all this crazy music, because not only their own, but songs that they've picked that maybe I've never even heard of. And that's like my favorite part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Playlist on my Spotify that is just like all my guests of, you know, the songs that they love that I'm like, now I love. And some of them have been really moving for me, like certain parts of my life over the last kind of call it couple years, where I've never heard this song and it means so much to me right now. You know, one of those songs that you play over and over and over and over again.
Yep.
What's going kind of on in your life. And, you know, even listening to your music, I would have never heard that. And now I get to listen to that. So I love that part of it. The second part, like, I love that part. The part that I'm kind of dislike about it is that everybody can do it. So then you're like, okay, really, that's kind of interesting. All right. And you don't
Yeah.
anything, but I talk to a lot of people, and I kind of got a good judgment of people where I'm like, okay, maybe you might go somewhere. And some people I'm like, there, you should probably just continue doing this as a hobby. And I think that's awesome that you keep doing it as a hobby.
Yeah. Yeah. I think unless you're doing blues or country, you're not supposed to be able to predict what the next thing is coming, the next chord, the next melodic thing, or the
Yeah.
next rhyme. And if you can't predict the next rhyme, then the artist has avoided cliche and they don't suck. And if, like if I don't know where the song is headed, what the next melodic thing will be, oh yeah, this is what I was going to say to you and your husband is not that I'm like an expert or anything, but you can only have two chords or even one chord, but the melody you sing over those two chords can be this complex, life-changing thing, change somebody else's life, make them cry. You don't need like a lot of chords at all. Two will do it. And some of the best songs only have two chords and maybe a third. So that really makes it proletariat, because it's the melody that you think up, and usually that comes from like feeling something deep. But yeah, I imagine you don't have artists on your show that you just don't think anything of. But discovering new music is one of the great joys of life, and it's really hard to do. It's like thanks to people like you and other people that expose musicians that otherwise wouldn't get exposure. Because like now that I don't have my record collection or CD collection, I don't even remember what I like. I have to be like, ooh, Mac DeMarco, I love him. I forgot. Or Mercury Rev, like I totally forgot. You need to look through a book or something.
I know.
So yeah, thank you for putting new music out there for people like me or people that don't make music.
All right, next song.
If I ever lost Amy, who could scarcely contain me, I'd jump out the window of a moving train, try to start a party in the rain. I'd learn some French and I'd
Burn, baby, burn. Such a good song. I love this song.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really proud of that one too. At the moment, I'm experiencing the same thing that this was, which is writing the last track for a record that's otherwise almost done. And so I just wanted the 14th. I just wanted one more song for the last album. And I had all these songs laying around. Like, do you know Happiness is a Warm Gun
The
by
song.
the Beatles? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've heard it a few times.
Oh, it's got like 4 songs smushed together that have nothing to do with each other. I need a fix because I'm going down. That never happens. Or like happiness, that never happens. It's like it's just almost a medley. And so what happened with Burn Baby Burn was I had 5 songlets, maybe 4, and I couldn't develop them. And I was just like, I'll just glue them. So when it begins with that cowpunk, when I ever lost Amy, and then it goes to that really heavy part, do 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 do, like really heavy, even for me. The record label guy was like, lose the intro because people don't listen that long, and they'll just think it's kind of a country punk song. And I was like, never. I'm very contrary. If I'm told what to do, then even if it's the right thing to do, I'll not do it. But and then it has that Beatlesy, hello, how are you? It's so nice to see the things you bought. I'm almost singing it like in an English accent. And so I was like, hey, this works. This mashup totally works. And now it's a pop song. And yeah, it doesn't repeat many patterns. Well, but the little acoustic burn, baby, burn before, it does repeat some things, but there's also a lot of things that just never come back that only happen once in like a collage or like a scene in a movie or show that's, what do you call it? There's kind of montage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a real original for that reason. It's just a bunch of little songs I smashed together.
Yeah, I really like it. So
Thank you.
What's the worst job you've ever had?
I have had some doozies. I guess.
Artists always have really bad jobs sometimes, like that's what I feel.
Yeah, I think when I got into the corporate world, it paid well, but and sales is good because it pays well if you can do it, if you can take all that rejection and not care that it's not altruistic or intellectually stimulating or creative. And there's flexibility. Like I have 2 little kids and I just prioritize them over everything. And in sales, they're not really seeing what you're doing that hour. They check your annual numbers, your quarterly numbers. But what I don't like about it, without specific companies being named, is just that it's a quarter will end and there'll be a new quota. A year will end and there'll be a new, and like if you hit 300, I'm always analogizing baseball because I'm a baseball freak. If you hit like 60 home runs, then next year, if you hit less than that, which is a freaky number of home runs, you already had a bad year. And it just doesn't end until you get old and die. Like, I just don't like the corporate world. And I'm not working at all by choice at the moment, looking, but I'm looking for something that has meaning, that will make me feel good. And the worst job, I guess, is one where the bottom line is the only driver, and so there's no love, and it's just numbers, and it's just hitting your quota. It's just so depressing. It's having like post-traumatic stress disorder even talking about it, because it's just like it never ends, and money is all that matters, and I'm not a money guy. I'm not a numbers guy. I'm not competitive. I don't really care about having more than I need. If I spend the same amount that I earn, great. And somehow I just fell into sales a long time ago, and now I'm out. I'm out. It feels great. I'm reading a lot of books and swimming laps and painting and playing the piano, and just I'm just recovering from corporate career when I was always supposed to be a pop star and not have those jobs. So yeah, it's an awesome sabbatical, this thing right now.
A good thing. Here's our next song. Like a flood. The beginning reminds me of I was just at punk rock bowling. Have you ever heard of punk rock bowling?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, we were just there in Las Vegas, and that beginning part, just obviously I know Me First and Gimme Gimme's always are taking other people's songs, but that just reminds me of one of their beginnings of their song.
The drum beginning or the guitar lead?
The guitar beginning, yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I had written it. Well, this is another funny thing. I realized that it had the same chords as Piano Man, so then I sped it way up and made it fuzzed out so that nobody would hear that it's the same chord progression. You see, it's like there's only 7 notes in music, and there's only like so many chords, so you're gonna reference people and people you know not. But the singer from Fountains of Wayne, Chris Collingwood, was a really close friend of mine when I wrote it, and he was like, "You want a little guitar lick in the beginning?" So I took, those miniature amps, there's like a mini Fender Twin and a mini Marshall stack, and turned it up really loud so it had that really gnarly sound, and played that melodic intro that you referred to. And Chris, they were like pretty much a pop band, power pop band, and he was like, "That's not what I had in mind." But he kind of laughed because I always choose like the punkier way of doing things, and he's the one that said my songs are a little twisted. But that song is also neat because first of all, there's a glockenspiel, and that's always really nice. But because I sing in the lowest register I possibly can, it's like almost like Lou Reed. And I haven't done too many songs where I sing that deep. There's something intimate and personal about that when somebody's at the very bottom or at the very top of their range. Liz Phair sings oftentimes at the very bottom of her range where it's almost a whisper, and there's just something intimate about it. And like Wayne Coyne from Flaming Lips sings way above where he belongs, and that makes him sound fragile and human. And I love idiosyncratic singers that don't traditionally sing well.
Yeah. Do you love the San Francisco music scene?
I don't know that there is one necessarily. In big cities, it's just a bunch of bands and some clubs, and some clubs made it through COVID and some didn't. But there's like, I guess, a power pop scene. I'm kind of in my own planet, Ari. So I've enjoyed, like, I used to live in Northampton, Massachusetts, college town, and that definitely had a scene. Everybody played in each other's bands, and places like that will have a music scene. But the big cities I've lived in, London, New York, LA, actually the LA music scene is pretty rad, but people don't necessarily know each other. So, but yeah, it's like,
probably not like the 80s, right? Well, the LA scene was pretty hot in the 80s, and everybody knew of each other. And
yeah, right, on the strip.
Like, we don't have that anymore. I miss that. That's the part I miss so much. It's like Cinderella would leave to Rat, and Rat would leave to Danzig, and Danzig would leave to LA Guns, and like it kind of flowed.
Yeah. They all
Yeah.
knew each other. They all had gigantic limos and bags of cocaine. So there's something to be said for the bloatedness of like the music industry back then. It was just fun, like
Yeah.
Oasis still, well, but back when they were big and together, the two brothers, they still had that kind of giant rock star thing. But yeah, I miss that too. It's become awful serious and shoegazing and just small room guy in a room alone
And
making this
everybody I
album.
feel is very serious about
Yeah.
I don't want to necessarily just say image, but I want to say that there's this fake persona. It's like I can't like I love that you swear, but like I have to be really aware of who I have on my show because I am out of control and raw and I like to swear and I like to be kind of off the cuff. And I have to really kind of watch that when people are reaching out to me. I get lots of people reaching out daily, but even mentioning sexual content.
Yeah. I was like, well,
I
how's
sent
that
you
gonna?
that email and it's
Yeah.
be amazed as soon as I'll book some, I'll send that message and right away they're like, oh, well, what do you mean by that? And it's like, listen, you pick the song. So if your songs have a girl or a guy or whatever the situation is, and we happen to go down the sex talk rabbit hole, I want you to be comfortable for one. And for two, it just blows me away that you're nervous to talk about that. Who do your fans know? They don't even know you then.
Yeah, and then they can't know you if you're all buttoned up. And
Yeah.
like if you say, did that song get you laid? And somebody cancels you, that's fascism. That's censorship. That's
I
bullshit.
know.
I
And I've seen more and more and more of that where I'm just like, so now it's just like, here's my prerequisite. You gotta be able to have fun, right? X, Y, and Z. And if you can't do that, then it's just not going to be a fit. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I am seeing more and more and more of that where people are very concerned. Or I'll do a podcast and they'll be like, oh my God, I talked about, my sister and she, is going through something. And I'm like, can you delete that? It's like,
oh, who gives a fuck?
right? Like,
It's
does it
just
really, and they get so obsessed about what they said. And can I listen to it? And it's like, no, just gotta calm down. Like,
yeah, you were on the
live in
show,
the
but you don't
moment.
get to edit the show. I think if people take themselves too seriously and don't have a sense of humor about themselves, then they're unintentionally funny already and deserve mockery. And like that's just the rule of life. The people that can't take a joke must be mocked. Lustily.
Do you have any pet peeves, things that drive you crazy?
In life or in music?
Just in life.
Well, I think the whole like cancel culture. I'm not a Trump person. I'm not like a right winger, but I think if somebody is, I'm a stand-up comedian, so it really pisses me off. If somebody's triggered by some shit I might say, go over there and be triggered. You can stay in your room. Don't listen. Don't come to the club.
Yeah.
That really, really fucks me off because just like you don't own me. Like nobody owns anybody.
Yeah.
And you should be able to say, and like as a stand-up comic, you can do racy stuff. In fact, it's weird if you don't, then you're Bill Cosby, like how bad that turned out.
Yeah.
If you don't do racy stuff, or like if you make a joke that's controversial, you probably get canceled nowadays, which totally blows. But it's funny, even if it's like racy. If it's funny, it's funny. If it's offensive and not funny, then that's you're bad at what you do. But if you get your point across and you're risque, but you're not hurting anybody, and it's a great pop song or it's a great punchline and it's a big laugh, then you're not hurting anybody, even if you're treading into waters that could be trigger words for people that speak that way. I just don't like all those trigger people and the cancel culture.
And we just went and seen actually Whitney Cummings. We just went and seen her a couple weeks ago. And it was awesome. I love that all she talked about, she's like, fuck it, I'm going to just talk about transgenders. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was just nice. It was nice to like go to a comedian where they don't feel like and that's our safe spot, by the way, is when we go see a stand-up comedian. That's our safe spot.
Right.
To say everything that we want to say and we get to laugh at it.
Yeah.
Not feel judged by laughing at it. For that hour, we get to laugh at all this stupid fucking crazy shit that's going on in the world that we do not agree with. We get to
Right.
laugh about it, and that's what I think is important. And so starting to censor some of that stuff, I think is absolutely absurd. And she was talking a lot about that too, where people were like, no, you go do these bits. No, you do it. No, you, oh, fuck it, I'll just do it, whatever. And I think you have to be like that. You have to continue down the journey that this was already going. Like, let's just go and do it. That's why you got into stand up, where you can be yourself. Don't go and censor that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, and who gives the right to the censor? Who made them anything? Like they're
The
just another
9
human being.
people that we should just put on a fucking island, right? Because it's like only 9 people. That's what I feel like.
That's a lot of people, unfortunately. Maybe because I live in the Bay Area, but yeah, colleges like Chris Rock and Jerry Seinfeld won't play colleges because they're like, why would we do that to ourselves? So everybody's going to be triggered and need a safe space from us. It's just bullshit. Like you're either free to creatively self-express and freedom of speech, and give me the credit, like give me what do you call it, like a benefit of the doubt that I'm intelligent enough to make a racy joke and get a giant laugh from
Yeah.
people in the audience that are not racist, because it's not a racist joke. It's maybe making fun of the racist. Like don't I'm smarter than you. Like don't worry. Just don't come to the show if you're looking to get offended. But I think a lot of people wake up in the morning and they're like, oh, what's going to offend me? They're just out. They just want to get offended so they can write to the editor and, try to cancel somebody. And yeah, you're right. It's not 9 people, but it's a vocal, annoying minority of people that consume the arts.
What do you have kind of coming up right now? You have a new album coming up. What else do you got going on right now that you can share with us?
Well, we've been releasing singles. My group is the Campbell Apartment, and we've been dropping singles once a month. A new song just came out called Sand and Glue that people are saying is the best thing I've ever written. And I think so too. It's Nirvana-y, but it's just really catchy and heavy, and it's just really different. Like people I don't know from parts of the world I've never heard of are listening to it. So we've been dropping singles every month just to stay on people's radar, because before that I'd release an album every 3 years, and I don't want that anymore. And then I compiled a bunch of songs that I asked an old bandmate to send me from 30 years ago, a little over 30, a little under 30, but around through the 90s, from like 92 until the end of the century, basically. And I have 2 little girls, 5-year-old twins, and they say in a long time ago, and they mean a long time ago. So I'm calling it In a Long Time Ago. And that's, thanks. Yeah, it's, I'll never forget their expression. It'll be immortalized. But like the songs, they weren't to a click track, and there was like there was just like little flaws, but I like the flaws. Like Alex Chilton from Big Star, he would hear a mic drop or something would fall, and he'd be like, keep it. The things you wouldn't keep, he would want to keep. So that's coming out in August. And all the while we're making the new album, dropping them single by single. There's 5 or 6 out now across all streaming services. And when that's finished, our record label in New Jersey will release that. So that the In a Long Time Ago is coming out in August by the Campbell Apartment, and the brand new one, which is this magical album, because I met this producer and he's like the George Martin to my Beatles. We just brain meld, genius guy. That'll come out in November. So the Campbell Apartment will be getting a lot of content to you this year.
I love it. So where can our Music Junkies fans find you, stalk you, download your stuff, media?
Yeah, you can hear us on all the streaming services, YouTube and Amazon Music and Spotify and Deezer, all the lot. But we have a website that I'm very proud to have come up with the name, weareindierock.com. So there you'll see the archives and all the photos and songs. If you want to download something, just write to me and I'll send you the MP3, jazzmasterflash@hotmail.com.
Love it. Well, we're on your last song. Is there a certain one that you want me to pick to end today?
What are the choices?
Oh, St. Louis, Something in the Way. There Goes the Sun. Season in the Sun. Cheryl Noble, The Mirror. Long Distance Relationship. Sick and Tired of Being Sick and Tired. I Don't Believe in Love.
Let's do I Don't Believe in Love.
Okay.
Anymore.
not that I'm trying to leave in the store. I just can't believe in love anymore.
Don't believe in love anymore.
Yep. Either I'm in a happy relationship, or when it ends, I think love is a fallacy, and I have to write a really cathartic, angry ass song about all the suckers that believe in love, because it ain't real, and it's from the heart. It's from my little shriveled up black heart, but it's from the heart anyway. And the guitar solo in that thing is Jody from Fountains of Wayne, and he's one of the world's best living guitar players. So that solo in and of itself is like makes the song worth listening to. Thanks for playing it.
You're welcome. I love it. So before I let you go today, obviously, I'd love for you to leave us with some words of wisdom. You're 30 plus years, not only in the music industry, but in life and being a dad and, you know, having a small black heart, all of that kind of
until I fall in love again, and before it ends horribly, I'll have this. I would just say that don't try to be too fancy or overthink it. If you're writing a short story or a song, just make a little song. There's nobody listening anyway. Like, don't write to some audience, some opaque, anonymous person or people or record label or magazine, because then you're not being true to yourself, and then you're already selling out, and it's not going to make you happy, and you're not going to get a bag of cash. Just write to please yourself, and then you can't really go wrong, because nothing's stopping you. There's the instrument, your voice, your words, and if it pleases you, then you got a really good thing. I want to hear it. So don't do it for the money. Do it for the pure joy of creative self-expression.
That's great words of wisdom. And I'm 100% on board and agree with that. I think you will. I think this is how you do become who you want to be, is doing
Exactly.
it yourself. Don't force it on anybody, right? So
yeah, don't never ever pander.
Yeah. And I'm a huge believer in that, because when I first started this podcast, that was a huge thing where people were trying to change. Like, people that were coming on my show were actually trying to change. Hey, yeah, I just want to come on there and talk about my single. Well, that's not what my show is about. And you're not going to change what my show is about. So I love that. It's so true. And it's been hard to kind of stick to your guns, right? And even as things are changing and evolving, you're changing and evolving. And now it's almost like you get more and more confident, like, no, and now this is my new way that I'm doing it. And now and then eventually this becomes who you are. And then there is no outside noise. Your boundaries are set. So such words of wisdom. I love that so much.
Thanks, Annette.
Well, thank you so much for being on Music Junkies today. I had such a great time. Thank you for sharing your stories and your music and your experience. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. The honor is mine.
Welcome.